You're listening to Big Blend Radio's English Connection Show with Glynn Burrows, owner of Norfolk Tours. Welcome, everyone. Here on Big Blend Radio and in Big Blend magazines, Nancy and I are so dedicated to promoting small towns, villages, historic plazas. If you are in a place in the country, in the United States or around the world, plazas, historic plazas. So we look at the downtowns and main streets as something really important, not only for people to live, but also for the small businesses. And as we travel, I think these are the places that give us the true integrity and story of a community. And of course, Glynn Burrows is here every fourth Sunday. And today's show is all about English villages. And, it's great because this whole day we're doing all kinds of podcasts on main streets, villages, and we're creating a special edition Big Blend magazine on this. And as we look towards, I know it's summer, it's hot summertime right now, so we're traveling. Maybe add this in your vacation, in your travels, to go to those historic towns and villages. We're going to hear about England, but then when we get into the holiday season, this is also another time to really think about these places when you go for your holiday shopping. So we're going to talk restaurants, pubs, and we're going to talk about shops and all the different things you can do in these wonderful villages. So, Glynn, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good, thanks. It's a bit hot over here, which is unusual for us, but we're having to get used to this heat.
Yeah, it's a little different because I don't think, it's so funny about going around the world, right? The people are suddenly having to have air conditioning and fans where they didn't need them before, and places that have been using them are now going, it's cold. It's an interesting thing as our weather changes, huh?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we in England, when I was growing up, we never had a fan in the house. Now we've got fans in most rooms, I think,
Oh, wow.
and
Wow.
air conditioning is something that 99% of us do not have in our homes, but I think a lot of us are now thinking about it because it's getting a regular thing that we're getting summers that we really just don't know where to get ourselves. It's just so hot.
Well, there's some positives to it. For
Yeah.
travel, it makes it nice to have some sunshine. It's a whole new industry. So the air conditioning industry, it's a whole new thing. And apparently you now have wine that England is
Well,
producing.
yeah, we have been able to grow wine in England for some time, but the area that we can now grow wine is expanding. So, that's better for people like you who like a nice little glass of sparkly stuff, So, I mean, there are things that, I mean, my son-in-law, who's a farmer, started his grain harvest on the 3rd of July this year. Now, that's the earliest that any of his family can remember, and his family have been farmers since
Yeah.
the earliest that they can ever remember starting harvest.
Wow.
And he's already started, which is unbelievable.
So it's a whole new world, really. But I think I'm so excited about talking about villages of England because that I think comes to our mind when we think about going to England. We think of castles, we think about royalty, we think also about the beautiful lake districts and all the wonderful water areas, the coast. But we do think of, the English country garden and these just gorgeous postcard style, cottages and the villages, cobblestone streets, and so I remember Guernsey being like that with the little cobblestone streets, and you had to learn how to walk on them.
Yeah, you can't. Well, they tell me. I mean, I've never tried, but they say that you can't walk on cobblestones with high-heeled shoes on.
No,
I've never tried it, but they
me
do say
neither.
they do
I,
say it's rather difficult.
I don't know anything about walking in high heel shoes. I tried it. I've done it a few times, but then I realized this is not good for me because I like, no, no. So, but I wouldn't do that either. No cobblestones with that. But these villages of England, I know with Norfolk Tours, when you take your guests around too, is this one of the things that they want to do? Is they like, I want to see the real England, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that is what it's all about. You can go to the places. I mean, like my last tour, we went to big places, like Bath and Stonehenge and, Oxford. But we also wanted to see some little villages, little places like the cottage behind me is in Stratford upon Avon. I mean, we wanted to go and see Shakespeare, obviously. He weren't there,
Mm.
but we went to see where he was. But the whole place is surrounded by lovely little villages, and this is one of them. And the one behind you was on a tour that I did last year, I think it was. We stayed in a pub just opposite these cottages, and the
Mm,
pub was like them. It was a little thatched pub,
mm,
with beams and low ceilings and lovely big open fire.
mm,
That is what you want to see when you go abroad. You want to see what the area is like. And to
mm.
see what the area is like, you need to go into the little settlements to get a taste. And when I say taste, you also want to taste real food. And that's where you get it, in the villages.
I know that you get incensed about, box hotels that give you the boxed food that comes in the frozen
Oh,
department.
don't you just hate it? I mean, what is the point in being somewhere and then eating something that has come all the way from Spain or something?
Mm,
What is the point?
mm,
I know that it's nice to have strawberries in wintertime, or it's nice to have avocados, but at the end of the day, isn't it nicer to think that your egg at breakfast time was laid by a chicken in the field behind the farm?
yeah.
Isn't that what it's all about? We were at a B&B with my last tour, and the farm had chickens and pigs and sheep and cows, and that was all going. I know it's not pleasant necessarily, but that was all going to the local butchers. So the sausages that we had for breakfast came from pigs that grew up within a few yards of where we were having breakfast. That is what you want.
Hmm. And chefs that I know say, it's not about everything they do in the kitchen. It's about having the best ingredients. Then you don't have to put 20,000 things into a dish.
Well, and that's like drink, you know, wine grows in an area and it takes on the flavor of the area. Is a marvelous thing that takes on the taste of what the bees fed on.
Mm,
Beer is brewed with local water, and the beer tastes differently depending on where the water comes from. So I
hmm.
mean, all of those things are all about locality. I'd love to have it looked into, but I wonder whether a lot of the stomach problems and the body problems that we're having is because we're not eating what is growing around us. My ancestors all lived within 50 miles of where I live today. So none of my ancestors before my dad, really, I suppose, regularly ate oranges or bananas or
Mm.
definitely not avocados and things. So why do I expect that my body is going to be able to digest all these things?
Right.
My metabolism hasn't, over thousands of years, has never had a banana in it.
Well, and this is the thing too, when you travel, your body acclimates to the place that you're in, whether it's in the mountains, when you're by the sea, all of that. Now you see I'm going English here, by the seaside, so your body does acclimate. It may take a day or two, and sometimes when you move to an area, it takes a while. So if
Yeah,
it's a warmer temperature, like you're acclimating now to a warmer temperature, and it's going to take time. So next
yeah.
year, if it's warmer again, your body's going to go, oh yeah, I remember this. Not sure I quite like it, but I know what to do with it now, how to cool yourself down. So things like avocados or watermelon or something like that that grows in these hot tropical environments are actually foods that cool your body down and naturally. So I think sometimes our foods that are growing around us go with the region and its weather and what's going on. So for visitors, you're in a hot tropical place, you're going to want to eat the foods that naturally cool you down
Yeah.
versus, no, I'm always eating this over here. So I think this is a very good thing about, we're talking about villages, and the villages tell the story of the past and bring it to the present. And it's our job as locals and travelers, that community that shares space. There's a community local only space. Then there's a traveler space that jumps into the community of the actual destination they're in. So
Yeah.
there's this other community, and together we're supposed to take that torch of history and pass it forward and do it in a sustainable way. So businesses are sustainable. The places are there for future travelers to go and experience, this history. And the locals get to keep their heritage and have some pride of where they come from.
And also, by us doing what we do, doing what I do, and I know what you and Nancy do when you're out visiting places,
We do have wine.
Exactly. But by supporting the places that we're at, we enable them to carry on doing what they've always been doing. And also, it's helping us to learn more about them and their way of life. And it's better for their area because it's bringing in money to their area. And it's just I hate to say it, but it's a win-win, for it definitely is. And it's up to us who travel that we need to support these local small businesses. Whenever I go to a place, if there is a small independent coffee shop, I will go in and I will buy something. It doesn't matter whether it's just a cup of coffee and a cheese scone or whether it's a 3-course meal. At least I'm supporting that place. And that
Yes.
is what it's about. There are a lot of, I always call them Mrs. Miggins, little shops in the corner of a village green or a little tiny grocer's or a butcher's, or just support them. Even
Mm.
if you spend $10 with Mrs. Miggins, it's going to put a smile on her face.
And
If you
she's going to
spend
share
10
it with somebody else.
Well,
And if you,
exactly. It helps everybody. But if you go and spend $10 with, Mr. Big Person, he doesn't care. It's just another $10. So
yeah.
it's all about supporting everybody locally and then keeping what we want to see. We want to see these little villages. Unless we support them, they're not going to be there.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the villages in England, because I know you take people on tours through Scotland, Wales, Ireland now too. And will you
Yeah.
go to the Isle of Man and Guernsey and all those islands with people?
I will go wherever people want to
And
go.
even France. I know because you used to
Yeah.
work in France,
Yeah,
and
I
they have
speak.
villages too. They have
Oh,
villages.
yeah. I mean, I love France. Funnily enough, the first thing we used to do with the children when we got off the ferry is to stop at a boulangère and buy a French stick for me, some pain au chocolat for the children, and some croissants. Because, these little boulangères, they're disappearing. And even in France now, the boulangères are disappearing. So,
Mm.
it's very sad.
So the French stick, let's go into that because people know we like to
Oh,
talk about the Mr. Whippy, and now we have a French stick. They're all going to
oh.
start wondering about this.
Well, a French stick is the bread.
Bread.
The
Oh,
bread
wow.
it's about 2 foot long. You have feet in inches, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about 2 foot long, or might even be longer than that. But that is the staple diet for
Mm.
Frenchmen. But the trouble is now most of the village boulangères are closing, and most
Mm.
people now buy their French stick from a supermarket.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
the same. It is not the same.
No, no, because it's a craft. It's an art form. Cuisine is a craft and an art form. So I think that's important. And so you've got France. So I know you'll take people to France and you used to work over there and in the food world. And now going back to England and your region, you've got all these villages and you talk about like you've got the historic churches, which is just so beautiful to walk through. And I
Yeah.
think this goes back to you were talking about health. I think, we were all in the era where we either had like a farm area, rural area where we're growing things, or we were in the village areas doing work in the village. So business was being done.
Yeah.
And so when you went somewhere, you walked more. And I know Europe versus America, America is in love with SUVs and big trucks.
Right. Yeah.
And in Europe, it's like you go out to lunch with your friends, then you walk back to work, and then maybe you'll go walk to the market and get what you need for dinner and breakfast. Then you go home, and then maybe if you go out with your friends that night, you're walking again. There's a lot of walking culture, and villages do that. Whether you're walking around as a traveler to go see, a historic cathedral or a church or ruins, castle ruins sometimes. I think we're walking more. So your health is keeping up in a better way.
Well, it is because, again, that helps in England because most towns and cities are relatively small. So, for instance, we were in Bath the other week, not in a Bath, in Bath, the lovely, lovely Georgian city, and it was mostly walkable.
Mm.
Once you're in the middle of Bath, you can walk to any part of Bath. Norwich, my local city, you can walk from one side of Norwich to the other in about an hour. It's not big. But I noticed when I was in Toronto, we had to get the train to go from where my cousins live on the outskirts of Toronto to the middle of the city because it's sort of like 10 miles. We don't have cities like that apart from London and Birmingham, probably Manchester, Liverpool might be big, but most of our cities are walkable. I mean, even I was in Dublin last week, in Ireland, and Dublin is lovely. It's the capital city of Ireland, and it's walkable. We were in a hotel, we walked down to the river, we walked along to the castle, we walked to the university, we walked to the family history museum. We were walking everywhere. Some people walked to the Guinness Museum. I don't know whether they walked back very well, but
Then they went and kissed the Blarney Stone
oh
after
no,
the Guinness.
that's not there. But
Okay, I get that. Oh, I said that on another show and I had to be corrected, and apparently it didn't get. It's because I get stuck on Guinness. Because they say that if you drink one Guinness, you can live off of that one Guinness. Your body, there's so many nutrients in a Guinness that you can live off of it for 30 days.
I know for a fact that there were a lot of people drinking a lot of Guinness in Dublin. I can tell you that.
Of course. Well, it's a city. It's a fair city. When you think about these cities, like even London, don't these bigger cities, which it's just like a giant village, right? But aren't they made up of little villages now as these cities grow? Like San Francisco's got neighborhoods. We look at there's different neighborhoods. And a lot of times it goes with the cultures that moved over here, the different people that moved over.
Yeah, I mean, you've got that in London. London swallowed up villages and towns, so that although you're in Greater London, you're still in either a little village or a town that used to be where that is. And if you look at an old map, you can see that actually surrounding London, there were just lots of little towns and villages. But now it's just a sprawling mess. But London itself is only about a mile across. The city of London is only small.
So it is a village in a way.
Well, yeah, it's a city.
Yeah, I know, but
it's a very, very small area. But the trouble is with London is it's just grown. And
you know what? So many of the world travelers and travel writers that I talk with, they adore London. They love London, and they say every time they go, they discover something new, and they travel out, and they travel out, and they start exploring further out, and exploring further out, and one day they'll be in your backyard, and
Exactly.
and what's going on with Bath? I'm talking. All these people keep going. Judy Carney is a travel writer with us, and she did for her Main Street segment. She did Coimbra in Portugal, which is really fascinating because she went to a cabinet of curiosities. I can't stand it. I know it just, I want to go, we're warped, but she was talking about, she went to Bath and she got to sit out on a hill and, have a little, I don't know what they had, but she was playing Jane Austen, she said. Is it Jane Austen or getting it wrong? Yeah. Jane Eyre?
We went to the Jane Austen museum in Bath, and it's beautiful. Bath has got so much Georgian architecture, and the crescent in Bath is just a picture postcard. And then you've got the Roman baths in Bath. You've got Bath Abbey. Bath is just beautiful. And
is it a village or is it a city now?
It's a city because it's got an abbey. It's a city.
Okay.
And it's like I say, it's walkable. You get the bus into Bath from wherever, and then you can walk around. You don't. It's not a hard day.
Well, now what about in England? Because there's a countryside, and I think about I love my British humor as comedy. So I think about Faulty Towers. I think. I'm sorry, it's one of the best things ever and performed on the planet. And I try to get all our bed and breakfast friends to watch it. Nancy's, the first thing she says to people is like, have you watched Faulty Towers? And, but you think about where they were and in the locations. And I think, we watch these British, people have BritBox here. I think we have to get them away from the TV because it's so good. And you see all these settings, like the doctor, I think Dr. Martin, I don't know. It's beautiful. Yeah. So you have all these that Cornwall, but there's all these little villages where it's like you're not in the city, but it's like you have one store, one pub, just like 5 to 10 things. But don't blink. It's really small, but it's self-sustaining, and you want the visitors to come in. There may be a bed and breakfast next to it.
Exactly. And that is what is so important to keep the economy going. Because, say, for instance, you've got a bed and breakfast in a village, along with a pub or the local butcher and a baker or whatever
Mhm.
you've got in the village. If people come into that bed and breakfast, they will 9 times out of 10 go and have their evening meal in the local pub.
Yep.
The bed and breakfast will be supporting the butcher and he'll be supporting the baker for the breakfast things. So it's all about keeping the local economy going, you know, and this is what we found in the where was it? Where I know where it was, but I can't think what it's called. It's one of the not New Forest. It's one of the moors anyway. And we were on these, and funnily enough, that was where Poldark was filmed. Don't know if you've seen Poldark. It's a lovely pro. Anyway, and this bed and breakfast. I mean, we said, me and my guests, that we all said that this is the best bed and breakfast that we've ever stayed in. And they had the right ethos. They had the right way about themselves. They were just perfect because they were working with everybody else. That was what it's all about.
Mm.
Dartmoor.
Oh yeah, and I know we've been through Dartmoor.
Yeah.
That's so
And
like.
Tony.
Do you remember the TV show? You see, we get into this now. It's my fault with Judy Dench, and I can't remember. It's Judy Dench, and then the guy's name in it was Lionel, and she ran a secretary agency, administration professional agency. Excuse me, and I got to get my thingies right, before everyone yells at me. And he went to Kenya, as you say. He went to Kenya. They met in Kenya. She was a nurse, and then they didn't. Their correspondence got lost, basically. And then they reunited, and they would go out to the countryside to see his dad. And his dad married a American woman, so they were like country stars, and they had a drum set, and they were out in the country, and it was exactly what we're talking about because they lived in London, and it was very London and chic and, fashionable. But this countryside area was, I remember the lady would go and shoot with a gun out the window to let people know it was lunchtime. It was just fantastic. And then when you went to the pub, the whole town was there. If there was an event, it all went in one area. There wasn't like, where should we hold this? There was either the town hall or something, or the church hall. The church halls seemed to be a big thing, and I remember that. But if you're going to have a proper boot sale, sometimes it'd be at the church parking lot, or there's is that the village green, what you're talking about in your article?
Village green, yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of villages have got an open space in the middle of the village, and that is a village green. We've got one in my village, and whenever there's a big event, Christmas carol singing, or there's always a Christmas tree on the green. Whenever there's a village fete, it's always on the green. When there's a sports day, that's on the green. It's everything revolves around the green. And actually, all of the village businesses used to be around the green. The pub is still on the green. The shop is still on the green. The reading room, which is sort of like the village hall, that's on the green. There used to be another 1, 2 pubs on the green. So that there would have been 3 pubs around the green. There was the blacksmith. We've still got a foundry on the green. Everything was on the green because that is where everybody went. And it still is, like I say, if only a couple of weeks ago was one of the big village fetes, and that was on the green, and the whole village. And the lovely thing is, a lot of people from the villages around and the towns around will come in and support. So not only does our village support our events, the other villages come and support our events, and then we go and support their events.
Yeah.
So it's all a community thing. Whenever we go to the village events, you see people who you only see once a year at the village events, which is just lovely.
That's a nice balance. Sometimes that's all you want of that person. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, the village, it's interesting because when we're doing a lot of work on the East Coast, creating a publication about New York State. And I did some interviews with historians about New York City and how English and the Dutch got together. And historically, I mean, they were fighting. And then and they were on boats when they actually came to an agreement. And so it's kind of interesting how this region is set up, and they do have, Village on a Green. I think there's even a famous area in New York City, even a restaurant. I've seen places with those names, and it's like pubs there's always like the royal arms. What's going on with the arms? Whose arms are we talking about? Is it supposed to be armor? Like the
Yeah,
coat and arms? What's going on? I mean, is
it's
it
the
the
coat.
arms to drink?
No, it's the coat of arms, because when you used to go to battle, you had your own standard, you had your flag, and that had your coat of arms on it. And also your breastplate on your
Mm,
armor would have had like a tabard over it,
okay.
like a waistcoat, and that would have had your coat of arms on it. And that's mainly because if you've got, coat of arms, if you've got your armor on and all people can see is that, they need to know who you are. So you have your flag on your chest so that then they all know who you are. So a coat of arms is literally a coat, of arms, and the arms is the shield, the coat of arms.
Okay. So that's
Like,
like the clans that in Scotland,
well, it is,
kind of.
but if you look at the royal arms, it's got 3 lions of England on it, and the Scottish lion rampant, and so that is the coat of arms of the royal family. So where that. For instance, if the king is at Sandringham, the royal standard is flying over the house.
Okay.
You know whether he's at home because his flag is flying. And if you ever look at Buckingham Palace, if it's got the royal standard on, it's because the king is in residence. So the king has his flag with his coat of arms on it flying over where he is, so people know where he is.
That's fantastic.
And also, obviously, pubs being called the King's Arms or the Queen's Arms or whatever is because they wanted to tell everybody that they were backing the monarch or whatever.
Oh,
And also,
okay.
you often get the butcher's arms or the baker's arms, and they are coat of arms. No, not his arms. You often get that, and that is the coat of arms of the butcher's guild or the baker
Oh,
guild. So that it's all about celebrating what's important to the pub, and also to help to get people into the pub. So if you've got a pub, for instance, that supports blacksmiths, then any blacksmith in the town is going to go and have a pint in the blacksmith's arms because that's where they support blacksmiths.
okay. So that's like that's who their affiliate. Maybe they had a blacksmith in their family or
Yeah,
something like
exactly.
that. Okay, this is
Usually.
fantastic. I mean, because we see these things, and I just always go like, "There's what's in a name, you know? What is that about, you know?" And
Yeah.
it's like you hear boar's head all the time
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Again,
That's another one.
the boar's head is part of the coat of arms. For instance, in Norfolk, we've got a lot of pubs called the Ostrich. Now, that seems really strange because we don't have ostriches in England, but the reason for that is because on the top of the coat of arms of the Earl of Leicester, who owned a lot of land around here, guess what? He had an ostrich on the top of his coat of arms.
Something about this now because
Yeah,
it was really unique.
yeah. And so you will often find things to be friendly with your landlord, the person who owns all the land in the area. So the Earl of Leicester owned most of the villages in the area I grew up. So most of the pubs in my area, most of the villages had a pub called the Ostrich because they wanted to make the Earl of Leicester impressed by, oh, look, the publicans have all called their pubs after me.
And he went to Africa, what, killed an ostrich and then
I
stuck
don't,
it on.
I've never really looked into why he's got an ostrich on
Oh,
his.
I spy a whole other conversation coming down the road on
You'd,
the different arms because
you'd, just,
this
you'd give me something else to do now, haven't
yeah,
you?
and Bath. So now you got two. Sorry. You know, every time we talk, there's like, I mean, how many years have we been doing these? And there's no end to
Oh,
understanding.
yeah.
But going back to villages, these are the things you will see. Whereas when you've gone to the non-village section, you're
Yeah.
rarely going to see these kinds of names, right?
Well, you will in cities. You'll see pubs with names,
Okay.
and they've all got a reason behind them. But you've often find in villages you find pubs with peculiar names. Like for instance the Ostrich.
I,
I always, when I was little, I always wondered why we had a pub called the Ostrich. You know, and for instance in Dunham, which is where Diane comes from, they had a pub called the Black Swan. Well, we don't have black swans in England. We have white swans. Black swans are from Australia. Perhaps one of the landlords who took over the pub in Dunham thought, I've seen a black swan reported in Australia, so I'm going to call myself the Black Swan instead of the White Swan.
Or the black sheep. Yeah.
I want to be different. And funnily enough, a lot of pubs will have a nickname. And the Black Swan, when I used to go there, when we were courting in all those years ago, when we courted,
That just even saying courting, that's, you're
that's it.
dating yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Just kidding.
The Black Swan used to be called the Mucky Duck.
Oh, that's funny. The mucky duck. You're going to the
mucky
mucky duck. Well, you know what? Nancy rescued a black swan.
Well, there you go.
England, in England, and I
Yeah.
can't remember where we were. It was a bird sanctuary. Martin Mere. I don't know. Anyway, it was in England. As a little kid, and he was in this little pond swimming around, and so obviously from Australia, right? So we know, this is not a British duckling. No, just kidding. Anyway, he got his head stuck under like some kind of metal rod thing that looped over. So Nancy got a friend to go in there instead of herself to go in there, but she helped it at the end, but they do nip you. Rescuing a swan can be very painful because it was, it's not like we had cell phones back then. We could say help. By that time, the duck or the swan could have gotten hurt. But yeah. So anyway, Nancy rescued a black swan. I think it was in Martin Mere. And I remember we were near Cheshire or something. And when you're in Cheshire, you must have Cheshire cheese. You must
Guess
have
where I went? Guess where I went?
I went to
Cheddar.
You went to Cheddar.
Yes, Cheddar.
There is a Cheddar?
Yes, Cheddar Gorge. Beautiful place. Beautiful place. And
Did you get cheddar cheese?
I got some cheddar cheese straws, which were very nice.
Glad. Yeah. So now is that a village? Is Cheddar a village, like a cheese village?
Cheddar is the name of a village. Yeah. I know how to look after myself,
Oh my gosh, it's all about cheese. That's the dangerous thing. When we get to see you, the cheese thing is bad. Like, we got to balance it out. We have to eat some fruit in there somewhere. Marmalade and cheese? Do you put marmalade and cheese together? Boy, here we go. No.
I did. I think we told you the other day that Kirsten had a cheese scone and decided to have jam and cheese on it. She said it tasted quite nice. Not jam and cheese.
Clotted cream.
Jam and clotted cream. Yeah, jam and clotted cream on a cheese scone.
No, I don't think I could do the clotted cream at all. I don't like dairy unless it's ice cream and cheese.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. And so custard is out. Sorry.
Oh, well.
And flan. You guys like your flan.
Some people, I don't.
Yeah. All right. I'm hanging with you. We'll go have the cheese board. Yeah. When you go in the villages and you go to like a pub, it's like a proper pub meal and you can go in and have like a proper English breakfast in a pub. And I remember those being just, like you said, the sausage is not the frozen things that all look like they came out of the same thing. It's like someone made the sausage and they're big and fat. And the mushrooms, you guys like mushrooms like I do too.
Generally speaking, an English breakfast is sausages, mushrooms, bacon, an egg, how you like it,
potatoes.
Sometimes a piece of fried bread. Depends. I think now what they do a lot more is they have these hash browns because they've become quite popular. With people traveling, they're bringing things back with them. So hash browns are now coming in for English breakfast. And some people even serve baked beans. And I don't like that.
I remember fried tomatoes too.
Yeah, flat tomatoes. They have a flat tomato.
Flat tomatoes.
Well, that's a tomato cut in half that way rather than that way. So
yeah.
That's, funnily enough, when I used to be a chef, if you cut a tomato along the middle that way instead of that way, so that cut, that's called the breakfast cut, see? Because that's how you cut a breakfast tomato.
Wow. Wow. So England, the whole of the British Isles is a series of villages, and that's where you can find museums. Are there village museums ever?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, there's loads of villages with their own little museums. Or they've got one museum for an area. So one village might have a museum that covers 5 or 6 villages. Or there might be a small museum in one of the towns. Or there might be someone who's just got a load of stuff in his shed that he opens up to people as a museum. Or every village is going to have a local historian. So, there's going to be someone who you can talk to. If you go to a village pub and say, my ancestors came from this village, who can I talk to? There will be somebody who the publican will say, you need to talk to old Fred, or you need to go and have a word with Mary because she'll know all about that. There's always somebody. And in villages especially, you will find people who have lived there all their lives. So, for instance, my mum has lived in the village she now lives in since she was 1, and
Wow.
she's 88. She's lived in the same house since I was 1, you know? So you will find people who have lived in the village since they were born,
Wow.
you know?
It's
They're in
amazing.
their 80s or 90s, you know?
Wow. That's amazing. And
It
so the
is.
churches, churches change too.
Yeah.
Cemeteries, graveyards, when one gets full, the other one becomes one, right?
And also you see in a lot of villages, especially in Norfolk, but I mean other places as well, a lot of the churchyards, the graves have been copied by local family history societies. So if you're looking for a grave of an ancestor, there may well be a book published, or it might just be a leaflet, but there may well be a list of all the graves. So you don't have
Oh,
to hunt a
okay.
graveyard,
We want the booklets. The graveyard thing is hard, or
Oh,
especially
it
those
is.
big cemeteries there are certain
Oh,
people
yes.
were looking for, and I go there and I'm like, I don't even know how or where to start, but you need to at
No,
least get that number. And, some of them
exactly.
don't have maps. And I have a
No.
question for you about this. I went hunting for a grave. Well, Nancy and I got lost we went through Oklahoma. We went looking for a special grave. I'd never heard of this, but we're doing the Jefferson Highway, and now we're off topic, right? Of course. But no, people do this. So this is graveyard etiquette or cemetery etiquette that I want to learn. So there is a lady in the 1800s who committed suicide in this tiny little town. And this was like a village. I would put this on the list of a village. It's like a block, and that's it. And then it's all farm. And so she commits suicide. He's on a hunting trip, got lots of money, comes home and builds a mausoleum and gets her a coffin that is glass covered. And he puts her in the mausoleum in this coffin that has the glass top so you can see her. And he would go down every morning, pull her out, and brush her hair. Now, this is a wild story, right? And there's so much more to it. And mine is distilled and probably not 100%, but that's your raw basic. That's a really bad word to use when talking about graves and things. So anyway, we're like, we have to go find this grave. And we find the mausoleum. We finally find it. And it's weird because people drive through the cemeteries, and I always feel weird about driving through it. Well, because people are resting. So it's odd to me that we're driving through. And what if you're driving over a body? And then we get to the mausoleum, and there's like a little fence, and this little, it's grass and the little fence around it. And the mausoleum's got a little door. And then I'm like, I can't make myself go in because now I feel, is it rude to go in and open that door? I don't know if you can or not. I don't. But I just took a photo of it and said, that's it. We'll come back. Because if it was open, I would have gone in. But the fact there was 2 closures made me feel that was stepping into someone else's private space. I mean, I know he's long gone. I don't know about the family, but what is the etiquette, at least in England, in regards to things like that?
Well, in England, we don't have very many mausoleums. Definitely not in villages, not ones that you can actually go into. I mean, it's just, I can't think of one.
Well, I don't know if that little door,
But,
you'd have to hunch down to get in it.
yeah, but generally speaking, if I'm going to visit a graveyard, I will just go along and visit a graveyard. If I'm actually looking for something, I will contact the local, either the vicar or the parochial church council or a local historian. Generally, find that out either online or ring up the local post office if there is one, or if not, ring up the local pub and ask the publican because they might know, So make contact with somebody locally, and then if there is something like that that I want to have access to, ask whether I
Yeah,
can get access to it.
yeah.
Because, the worst they can do is say no.
But then at least then you're not trespassing. You know what I
Well,
mean?
it's not so much trespassing, it's exactly what you've said. It's just lacking respect if you just
Yeah.
burst in, you can't, you wouldn't do it to somebody's home.
My body just didn't feel like this was the right
No.
thing to do.
No, but just contact that area and see if you can find out who you need to get permission from. 9 times out of 10, people are really helpful. If you
Mhm.
tell them what you want to do and why you want to do it, people are often really helpful because that's
Now,
what they do.
yeah. Now, Katie Walls, I know you've been on a genealogy show with her, Kathleen Walls, the author. She said there was in the 1800s, like there was a decade or so, or like a time period where these coffins were popular amongst the rich people. So I didn't know if England, I mean, that doesn't sound very proper to me in England to do a glass. Would you, now if I do get in there and see a glass coffin, do you want me to photograph it and send it to you?
I'd love to hear more about it.
No, it's fascinating. I've never heard of it.
The only glass coffin I've ever heard of is Sleeping Beauty.
Sleeping Beauty. Maybe that's why he did it.
Was
Maybe
it
this guy started it. Beauty had a bruise under her back because she was sleeping on a pea. Or is that the Princess and the Pea?
That's the Princess.
Apparently, I don't know my fairy tales whatsoever.
But anyway, glass coffins are something that I've only heard of in Walt Disney films.
And I wonder about that era. Yeah. And Walt Disney is where we are right now. He came from here, Kansas area, Kansas, Missouri. Yeah, area. Kansas City region, I should say, within an hour of this region. Isn't that cool?
Very much so.
Yeah. So you never know where all this goes. But I know we had to go off topic, but it's kind of not too off topic, right?
No, not at all. Because, I mean, it's all about, whatever the word is, taking in all of the stuff that you're visiting, the area that you're in. What's the good of visiting a place if you don't actually see what's there
and what's from the past?
Learn about it. That's what it's all about.
I love it. Well, everyone, Glynn's article is linked in the episode notes. Thank you so much, Glynn. Everyone, Norfolk Tours. You can go to his website, norfolk-tours.co.uk. I know that website in the back of my head. I know it for over these years. So go keep up with him there. He's also on Instagram and doing very good at posting Instagrammies for us. See? Yeah. And everybody travels by, I want to have this for an Instagram photo. Well, if we don't support these places to keep their integrity, you're not going to have those amazing photos for Instagram. You're going to just be in front of a building that looks the same around the world. So that's the other thing. You want to keep Instagram exciting, or TikTok, or whatever you do, keep these places going. So thanks so much, Glynn.
Lovely to chat. See you again soon.
Thank you for joining us for Big Blend Radio's English Connection show with Glynn Burrows, owner of Norfolk Tours. If you're planning a vacation to England or looking up your family history in England, visit norfolk-tours.co.uk to connect with Glynn. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.